I was going to save the intro until the end, but this works too. Yes. I apologize in advance, or now, because it's now. And now 2.5 minutes are gone. So you're just going to have to deal with like my browser and stuff showing because I don't feel like taking the time to figure it out. But you'll get the gist of it. So this is called You'll Understand When You're Older. And I don't have any of my speaker notes. Oh, wait, there we go. Sweet. So as he mentioned, my name's Amanda Berlin, and we'll just skip to the next one. See if this works. Yes. Thank you. So we're going to start with a little bit of an English lesson first off, about adages, idioms, proverbs, truisms, and cliches. Cliches are the ones that we never want to use. The English language is fairly young, in retrospect, especially, kind of compared to InfoSec. InfoSec is fairly young, as far as technology goes. Did you know that, even not too long ago, there was, the ampersand was actually included in the, ABCs, right? So right now you have X, Y, and Z. Well, that and used to be at the end of the alphabet, and it was actually and per se and, which got shortened to ampersand, which now is just and Z. So that's just a little bit of a history lesson on the English language, and we're going to cover a little bit more of that as we go on. So throughout your life, there's been certain phrases that you've either picked up from your parents or from mentors or things that you've found to be tried and true, that can get across a certain point that you're trying to make, right? A lot of times, even though like I've never been a mechanic, it's great to use, cars and highways, like information superhighway, right? It's just easy to explain stuff in those terms to, the average person when they don't really understand what you're trying to get across. So the first one I'm going to cover is an adage. First example is where there's smoke, there's fire. So an adage is an aphorism or like a pithy observation that contains a simple truth. Other ones that you can have are like a penny saved is a penny earned, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. All those things that you've heard, over the years. Next, you have an idiom, which is a cold day in hell. It's an expression that is kind of peculiar to itself when you break down the individual words. Many times we use idioms in our everyday language, and those don't really translate very well when you're either not a native speaker or, there's other differences that we'll get into, hopefully, if I have time. And if you think about it, like if any of you have kids, trying to explain idioms to children is fun. I actually have a book that's just all idioms. That's a kid's book, and none of it makes sense to kids, right? You have to explain what each of these mean, what a chip on your shoulder is, depending on your kids, what high as a kite is, sick as a dog, that kind of stuff. And I'll also go over a little bit of, I'm going to totally butcher these, but it's some idioms from different languages that don't translate over into ours. Next up is a proverb. Simple, short saying, widely known. You get a lot of these in like nursery rhymes when you're younger. And they kind of just teach you a simple truth or precept based on common sense. Examples are cleanliness is next to godliness, all good things must come to an end, and a journey of 1,000 miles comes with a single step. Number 4 is a truism, which is a statement that's just obviously true, and has become, something standard that people say. So the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm not really sure why all of these have like a fiery death theme, but they're just the first ones that I thought of. Other examples are the apple never falls far from the tree, a friend in need is a friend indeed, apple a day keeps the doctor away. It is what it is. Now that's a cliche. So next up are cliches, things you never want to say. A cliche is a phrase that's been overused, and I'm sure all of us, either in a sales meeting or upper management or even in conference talks, really speechwriters should steer clear of cliches. Salespeople should steer clear of cliches, even though we know they don't. Thinking outside the box, win-win situation, giving 100%, best practices, all of the stuff that we cringe at every time we hear. Hit the ground running. There's so many of them that I really couldn't list them all on the slide. But these are the original buzzwords, and that's why we hate them. You know, at one point, somebody said thinking outside the box for the first time, and just, I'm sure people's minds just were blown, right? Because at that time, it wasn't a cliche. It was actually, oh my gosh, that actually makes a really good point and gets my point across. And then just everybody started using it. But we can do better. So who knows what this is from? It's our favorite hacker movie to hate. And this is the warning slide, right? There's a lot of power in the words that we use and in the things that you'll understand when you're older, but you have to be careful. How you apply those adages and idioms and proverbs and everything over time can either get you a home run or absolutely ruin it. Overall, here we're kind of trying to talk about how the idioms and phrases will help us impart memorable lessons, but there's also the wrong way to do it. Let's see here. So this one in particular, have you ever had a conversation about a topic that could either be explained very, very simply or extremely nuanced and complex? Anytime you have that conversation, you can kind of tell who's talking out of their ass because those people are the ones that are going to be using the cliches. In this particular one, it's, I dropped a logic bomb through the trapdoor, I use a password sniffer. It just makes all of us cringe, right? That's not something you ever want to say unless you don't want to be taken seriously. We don't want someone coming to you for an engineering project and saying words that they saw in a BuzzFeed article. That's part of the reason why we hate them. And buzzwords don't really tell us anything other than the person using them most likely has no idea what the hell they're talking about. There are several areas that kind of bring out the differences in our phrasing. One major hurdle to that could be cultural barriers. So anybody in here have English as a second language? No? There you go. So I'm sure you speak English very well. But a lot of times you have idioms that don't quite come across because they don't make sense in the language that you were born with. And I'm totally going to murder some of these. So I'm only going to do I'll probably just do one because I hate speaking other languages that I don't speak very well, especially on stage. Let's see here. So, oh man, this is horrible. So this one's in French. It is les carottes sont cuites. It's kind of like when they tell you that your pen test against this app is the testing environment, but then they don't tell you that behind it's the prod database. Basically, it is the literal translation is you can't. The carrots are cooked, you can't uncook them. Is that right? Yes. Did I say it okay? Yes, sweet. I've only taken one French class, and that was as close as I was going to get. And a couple of them are like Polish and Russian. I'm going to skip those. Another thing that we get hung up sometimes is age differences. Looking at the crowd, we're ranging somewhere between mid-20s to however old Josh is. So there are things that we say like, why do we hang up a phone? Yeah, why do we roll up or down a car window? Because you used to roll it down, right? Why do we rewind to do over or go to the beginning of an audio or video clip? And why is it called a clip? What does CC mean on an email? all of that kind of stuff, while we still understand what the meaning is, we kind of lose a lot of the origin to the different generations and age differences. Carbon paper, yeah. I've tried that. It doesn't really work. So another thing that can come into play is socioeconomic status. We actually talked to a school psychologist that deals with kids a lot in different statuses. Fuck. Just ignore that. It's been happening all the time. So, thanks. I'm just going to hold it now. There's actually a doctor that speaks on this a little bit. Her name's Dr. Ruby Payne, and she talks about understanding poverty. The fact that, like, you have a very large leg up if you are in a wealthy household, which are proven to use larger words and more words, even at younger ages. Say you are 5 years old, and by the time you're 5, you've only heard 5,000 words. And a lot of times in different poverty situations, whether it be in the hills somewhere or some kind of urban town, a lot of times they don't get the same kind of language structure and amount of words as somebody in a wealthier household. And, you know, that same 5-year-old in a different household could hear 5 million words at the age of 5. And there's definitely a big difference there as you grow up and you're communicating with different type of people. Not only can that be a difference, you can also bridge gaps with a lot of these idioms and phrases, because it doesn't matter how much your family made growing up or how much you make now. A penny saved is a penny earned, or pinching pennies still makes sense to all socioeconomic statuses. Same thing with bringing home the bacon. Like, just because you don't have pigs at home doesn't mean you don't understand what that means. So this is beyond communication. There are a lot of people that communicate at those different levels. Some people will just like vomit words out into a conversation, a meeting room, sometimes when you're standing on stage to an audience. Maybe they use cliches. Maybe they're just excellent at giving way too many words to explain something. We all know that kind of person that can talk a mile a minute and use all of these words, and you still have no idea what the fuck they're talking about when they're done. However, something as simple as "can I help you," while not an idiom, it has a way of connecting people. So you can say that when you walk into like Crystal Burgers and, you know, have somebody say, "Can I help you?" Or you can have somebody walk up to you after you've lost a loved one and say, "Can I help you?" It's the same words, completely different context. It's said a different way. And it just changes everything, because you're then making a connection with those words that you may not have had before. So I'm going to skip this one because I don't have a whole lot of time. We'll skip that one. We'll skip that one. So I'm just going to give you some examples. These are going to be some specific idioms and adages that we have. A while back, I asked Twitter and Facebook and friends and family to give me any sayings that they had heard growing up. And let me tell you, some of them were hysterical. And I could, it's not anything, one that I have ever heard. What's that? You did. You gave me some really weird stuff. No, some of the stuff that his mom said was just amazing. Like, just, yeah, it really, really was great. But, and I could definitely tell that people were raised in different generations or in different, like states or countries or whatever. And when we went through and researched some of these, I'm supposed to be giving this talk with David. Say hi to David. He couldn't make it here. But when we researched a lot of these sayings, the internet really just wanted to, attribute all of these to like MLK Jr. or Marilyn Monroe or Ben Franklin or Abraham Lincoln. And I'm pretty sure that's just a product of, the internet generation. This saying, the first example was the idea to give me the idea that kind of created this talk. It started with, as most things do, this is on wheels. Holy shit. I'm leaning. So this started as like some random argument on Twitter, some infosec drama, which a lot of things usually start out as. And I personally think that you can take this advice, even though you were taught this as a child, and use this as an adult, and not only in your personal lives, but also like in your professional lives as well. The origin of this was from, it's President Teddy Roosevelt's daughter. And it originally wasn't this saying. It was, if you can't say something good about someone, sit right here by me, which is completely the opposite meaning. That's like, you got some dirt on someone, come sit next to me and we can just laugh at them together. That's not exactly what this is saying, and not really what we teach our children now. And in the beginning, it's great to teach your kids because you know they have less of a filter. It comes in handy when talking about bullying, telling people that they have an ugly haircut, or all the other 5 million things that you wish your kids didn't say out loud in public. But as adults, most of us now have ingrained the knowledge of those social behaviors. However, there are a few caveats to that. One, not everybody can pick up on social cues the same. Recently on the podcast that I'm on, we had somebody on talking about neurodiversity. And a lot of times our field really attracts people on the neurodiversity spectrum. We have a lot of high functioning autistics that work in IT because we don't, like half of us don't talk to people at all. We sit at home behind our computers, and that's great because that's what you're made for. But those kind of people don't really, they have a hard time, prettying up the language if talking directly to customers. So that's one thing that's a caveat. Second one is a lot of us are communicating in different ways than we did when we were younger. Now it's 280 characters in a tweet instead of 140, but that's still the same idea. And I could do an entire talk on bullying, but you're still talking to strangers over the internet, and really that's what made me think of this is, you can definitely just shut up and let people do their thing as opposed to being mean to strangers online. And third thing, this saying is good advice to keep in the back of your mind. We can't always just follow it word for word, because a lot of what we do, we have to kind of give harsh truths to people. That's a lot of our jobs, whether you're red blue teamer, developer, whatever. A lot of times what we need to impart on people is not going to be easy and is not going to be nice, but that's where tact comes into play. Oh, and another one that kind of goes along with this is it's not what you say, but how you say it. So, we don't want to walk up to a customer and tell them they've did a horrible job securing their network. Or maybe, sometimes, a lot of times you do want to walk up to the customer and say they've done a horrible job securing their network. Keeping that phrase in the back of your minds that you learned when you were younger really can enhance your communication. Because at that point, you need to be able to see maybe they're having a very emotional reaction to their network that they thought they put their heart and souls into. Okay, maybe half of the stuff they did was not good, but still, you can tell a lot of times those people care about what they're doing. Yes, Scott? Yeah, wireless sucks balls is true sometimes, right? But it's not something you should put in a report. Yeah. So while you could say that you're just telling it like it is, a lot of people that say that are really just being dicks. Scott, for example, no. So be careful if you fall into this trap. If you knew as much as I know about this thing, you would totally agree with me. So let me sit you down and I'm going to teach you all about this thing that I'm assuming that you have no idea what you're talking about on. But remember, you're telling it how you interpret it. Everybody has a different background, a different story. You may know different things about X while they know different things about Y. We're kind of all working on that security issue together. You don't want to give them a fight or flight response to this. You want to keep that thought in the back of your mind that they may not necessarily know the same things that you know. Or they might, and they just, have other hurdles as well. Oh, how much time do I have? All right, so nothing ventured, nothing gained is the next example. So the origin, this is kind of a time-old saying. 5, thanks, Tim. I have other people carrying me off the stage, I think. So this is attributed to Geoffrey Chaucer in one of his first iterations. It comes across as, but to attempt it, he said, should not grieve, for that he attempts nothing will nothing achieve. So he kind of cuts to the heart of it. The phrase is about taking risks to get something, but the meaning is in the regret of it. If you never risk anything, you never find a reward, and like no pain, no gain, right? So nothing that we do is easy. Nothing that we learn, create, teach is easy. What's there? Oh, yeah. It might be easier for some of you than others. You might struggle on specific things, but for the most part, it's pretty advanced stuff that we're working on. But within those struggles comes constant failure. If you're not failing, you're not working hard enough. You're not learning hard enough. Otherwise, you're like just a genius and great for you. But most of us fail. And within that failure, not only are you learning awesome things, sometimes you learn the hard way, right? You're learning some bad things as well. So you want to agree with yourself to kind of venture out there and get outside of your comfort zone. And do a little bit more than you're comfortable with. It's hard for me to tell people to go out there and talk to others about stuff that you don't know about, because I have a very hard time doing it, because I have a hard time talking to people other than when I'm just like yelling at you from a microphone. So there's no right and wrong. There's only fun and boring, which comes from hackers. How much time do I got? 3 minutes. Whew. So life's about choices and consequences. I'm talking so fast, and I apologize. This quote belongs to Hall of Fame basketball player coach John Wooden. It's a good reminder that rushing through something might save you time right now, but it'll ultimately take you more time to fix it in the end. Who's ever seen any of that? So the fiber wire in the bottom left-hand corner are the orange cables. And the white and the yellow are all Cat 5. This is from a place that I used to work, and all of those were temporary solutions that were there for 8, 9, 10 years. Yeah, because this is the kind of stuff that you need to plan for. Those choices had consequences. They didn't think about it beforehand. And you could go on and on and on about this kind of fails in InfoSec and whatever that have come from, this is only a testing environment, because YOLO, why not just go through it and this is, sorry, not production. Yeah, so fuck it, do it in prod. Definitely has its own consequences. And as a subset of that, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. And I am almost out of time. TLDR, I'm bad at that. So, so we can skip that one. A widely accepted interpretation of this is the perfect is the enemy of the good. Closely related, this is the Nirvana fallacy, which kind of is, if you can't find the specific, perfect 100%, this is how we're going to do it, you don't do it at all. Which I think we fall into that trap a lot of times by, we're all security minded and we want it to be 100% secure. You're not all going to have a skiff. Your business has other needs and wants, and for the most part aren't in it for the security. They're in it to make money creating, X, Y, or Z, or providing another service. And I am now out of time. Picture's worth 1,000 words. We all have pie charts. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. This is like providing a service and not actually subscribing to it yourself, which you see a lot. Pot calling kettle black, whatever. kind of pertains to patching. I think sometimes people think you should always 100% apply patches next day, no matter what. You're stupid for not applying your patches. But have any of you ever worked in an enterprise environment when you're like, all right, well, I have a Windows 2000 box that I can't upgrade because we don't have the $5 million to upgrade the entire system that it's connected to. Kind of the same idea. You shouldn't shame people just because they're in that situation. So thank you. Any questions? You can catch me afterwards, and we're not going to do any takeaways because I don't have any time. And that's me and David.